afternoon, good morning. Welcome to my live. Thank you so much for joining me. So I just wanted to jump on here and do a quick update on what's going on, what's happening, what the Lord is saying, stuff like that. So, concerning the dimension that arrived that has come to take us higher, I I have to say that my dimension completely shut me down from greeting people. So I was at work one day, going in the kitchen to make coffee and just have a quick breakfast. And there's this person in there that was like mixing coffee or whatever. And they said good morning to me. And I was just about to say good morning. And Zion completely threw this thing over me, like threw it over me and threw it out. Like it was like this big thing. He threw it out and it went down. Like I don't even know how to explain it. You know, he threw it out like this wall, like right in front of you, right? But it's big because it's literally manifestation of a thing, but it's in the spirit of a wall. And he threw it down, but because I could read spirit and I could read the lining, you understand, of spaces, I could read the lining in the laws and the rules. He's saying, shut it down. That's what he said. He said, shut it down. So, like, it seemed as if though sometimes the people things are that sometimes the things that people are doing is harmless and easy, but you don't know what's behind it. You don't know what their strategy is. You don't know what their end game is. You don't know who sent them. Just because somebody is saying hi to you doesn't mean that they're coming out of the goodness of their heart. Perhaps somebody sent them. Understand? We can literally do something that looks good, but if the source is not of God or the intentions is not like good or godly or pure, no, that's not okay. Okay, so I was shut down. So what the enemy did was that when they saw that God shut that down, they literally went into counter mode, right? And they started have everybody in life is saying hi and morning to me right now. Everybody in life, people from all race and ethnicity and area is saying hi to me right now. And I love you guys. And I get that you're doing what you're told, but I'm doing what I'm told too. Okay? Sometimes I slip and I still say hi back, but I catch up right back, because it's going to take like sometimes it takes a little practice to walk it out, you know? But God's not gonna come up on me really hard if I make a little mistake every now and again, right? But that's what my group did. It's straight up Zion. Like I was straight up functioning as Zion. So when I switched the spaces and I went to school, I was like very cautious to make sure that they're all in the class and just see it down and everything. And then I just came in after and I just took my seat, because it's not my intention for Zion to be shutting down people or doing this and that to people. We want to help. We don't want to, we don't want to cause unnecessary things to come against people. So you guys also want to be cautious of that particular command that went forth from Zion, right? So that has been shut down. So I'm not really allowed to be saying good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to people everywhere and all over the place, right? So the dimension is transitioning. He's transitioning from um, individual to organizational. Um, Cannot believe I'm saying this, but it's true. So um, that's what he's doing. So looking at things from a bigger perspective, looking at how the needs of the needs of people can be met from a larger perspective, from an organizational perspective, from partnering with institutions, organizations, stuff like that. I don't have a full scope of how that looks, but being that I'm hosting the dimension, that's something that I can tell is happening. It's transitioning, right? So in addition to that, I've also been having like more different um different forms of attacks from the enemy, because they attack you according to your grace, your dimension. So the same way how the grace functions, the enemy had attacked me with something that was similar to the grace, except the difference is that what the grace does, it doesn't do that. It does exactly the opposite. So the way how the grace gives you rest, the way how the grace guides you, gives you energy, gives you strategy, well, it does exactly the opposite. It doesn't give you energy. It weakens you. It causes fatigue. It causes it causes you to not want to do, because grace is an empowerment and it causes you to want to do. So what the enemy does is that they try to counter that so that you don't want to do it. So you have to be pushing, and it seems as if though you are doing things from out of your own strength and not from your grace. What it also wants to do is to dim the voice of your grace so that you are not hearing your grace. So the grace is speaking, and normally it's very clear, so loud, so distinctive that you can just speak it out. But when the enemy was attacking me, I noticed that the grace's voice was a little less loud, right? I knew that it was talking, but it was a little less loud, and I had to go and I shut myself, in a room somewhere so that I could make sure that I'm getting exactly what it is saying. Because before then I was literally on like a crowded bus with loud noise, and I could hear the grace so clear, and he preached the whole sermon. Okay, you see these lives that I'm doing, please, I'm not even doing the grace justice. Okay, if you hear the way my grace talks and delivers the message and delivers the word, Jesus Christ, praise you. Okay, so I don't even do him justice. He can preach a good sermon, and I was actually hearing that in a crowded bus with a lot of people talking and with loud music, and I heard him well. But when the enemy was attacking me, I had to go and shut myself up so that I could hear him well. Okay, and what I noticed also is that, is, remember I told you, since these graces started to come more leveled up, like the way how the enemy attacks has become a little more strategic in terms of the way how they try to get at you. So one of the things that God is doing is that we have Christ within us, and we have the Mount Zion that is there within us. And when the mountain projects from outside, from I'm sorry, when it projects from inside to outside, and I can look and see it, that's one way. But we also have Mount Zion that is up in the sky beyond the clouds. So when I lift up my head and I see the Mount Zion up there, Mount Zion has a connection from from there where it is up above the clouds directly to my head top, right? It's directly to my head top, and it fans out. So it's connected to my head top, but it fans out like it's a wide circular space, and it's a direct connection to Zion. And I can look up, because I can read light, and because I can read the air. I can look up, I can know what they're saying, I can know what they're doing, stuff like that. The enemy also has an imitated version of that. So what the enemy does, right, what the enemy does, um, I want you guys to hear me, because a lot of you, especially people who are in the rough areas, this is how, this is like one of the major ways how the enemy gets at you and gets you to do patterns of behaviors that is ungodly, right? So what the enemy does is that after they write the law for your soul, because they write laws for your soul, what they do is that they send down their, they have like a, it's like a string. Have you ever seen a puppet on a string? The string is connected to the head top or the body or wherever, and they do it like this and they maneuver the puppet and stuff like that. That is how the law comes down to you. It connects to your head top, but the target is really right here. It is right here, because this is the easiest entrance to your soul. To your soul. Hear me, okay? Right here on your forehead. It is the easiest entrance to your soul. So it connects to your head top. The target is here. And once it enters here, it is in your soul. It's connected to your soul. And then, like for example, they will tell you, they will write a law that says, we want you to drink beer. We want you to tell lies. Even if it's not necessary, you tell lies. And so you go in a certain area, because different laws are associated with different areas. Okay? So you go in a certain area and all of a sudden you're lying. All of a sudden you want to drink beer. All of a sudden you feel these urges to have sex. All of a sudden. And you can't explain it. You just know that you are feeling it in your flesh. And you think that it's you. It's not you. It's what the law is trying to tell you to do. Okay? So it's not you. So it connects to your head. Now, I've tested this. So let me tell you one time that I'm not just telling this to you. I have tested it. So I don't get the bus from work, and I'm walking home in the streets. And as I walk through the streets in different areas, I go in one area and the law connects. Because remember, I have an antenna, so I'm always scanning, so I always know what is going on in the atmosphere and the air around me, because I can read the air. So it connects to my head top. And as it connects to my head top, I'm conscious that it has connected, but I don't stay there in the area. I keep going. When I leave past a certain point or parameters in the area, it disconnects. As I enter another area, another law connects. You see that? It connects and disconnects like Wi-Fi. But you got to be in the area. You got to be within a certain parameter in the area. Okay? You got to be within a certain parameter in the area. That is the reason why I've noticed that whenever I move to certain areas, I've moved a lot in the past. Whenever I move to certain areas, suddenly I don't want to eat certain kind of food anymore. Suddenly I don't like certain kind of things anymore. And I didn't really know why until now that I have more consciousness, more clarity, and my grace is highlighting things to me. I was like, oh, okay. So they have the rules over the areas, over the territory, over the, the subdivided areas, and they have their laws. And when the law comes, it tells you what to do, how to act. It's a programming for your soul. So how did I get past the law? There are several things that you can do. You can leave the area because it doesn't stay forever. The air from Mount Zion detaches the law. The air, the atmosphere, right? Because what happens is that even though we are in a nation where God has sealed us sealed us in a covering because he's going to be doing this work that has already begun, right? Even though we are in an area that God has the height in, God is not so cruel or mean that everybody who is not a Christian or is not following him, he's going to be torturing. No, the Bible tells us that he makes the sun to shine on the just and the unjust. So he gives believers a time, and he gives the non-believers a time. Just like how the wheats and the tares, according to the Bible, they grow together, and when the time comes, God's going to separate them. Right? So everybody in the nation, whether they are a saint, whether they are saved or not, they get to partake of the grace that is falling down on us in the nation. So then, when we have something like that, we now realize now that the air from Zion is more dominant on some days, and on some days the air is still up high, but God still allows for the non-believers to have some time for themselves, where it is a time for them. Okay, so some days we are dominating, and some days we are still the dominant one, but we are not, we're not really fighting for power because we know that we have the heights. But give them a chance to be free and to be themselves. Okay, as long as they're not really committing any crime and stuff like that, right? So the air from Zion gets rid of the law. Once you say the air from Zion comes in, it gets rid of the law. The next thing that gets rid of the law is grace. What is above the law? Grace. Grace is above the law. The law does not have the power or the capability to overcome the grace, because the grace is Christ, and Christ has already overcome the world. There's nothing that could kill Christ. Nothing. He has already defeated everything and conquered everything. Okay, so grace is above the law. When your grace comes out, the law vanishes. You don't even know which direction it runs. Probably scattered in 7. When the grace comes out, it's gone. Okay, it's gone. So the air from Mount Zion gets rid of the law. Your grace gets rid of the law. You can leave the area where the law is functioning. Like if it is a law, like something really severe, where you feel like let's go a little ghetto here, right? This is not my life, but I know the people group that we may be talking to right now. Let's say you are in an area and you continuously have these urges to hurt or harm somebody, right? Before you weren't in that area, you weren't feeling these urges, but you suddenly went in an area and you are starting to feel like you just want to harm this person. As long as you are conscious that you suddenly feel that you want to harm this person as you come around this area, you need to leave. You've come under a law, and the thing that is telling you to do is too much. You leave the area. Okay, go somewhere else. When you go somewhere else, you will notice a different law takes over. Okay, and that depends on if it's that particular law that is hanging down in that manner at that time, because there are different laws that the enemy does, just like how God has different laws. Okay, so whenever we had carnival in last year, 2023, we had some disturbances that was occurring on Bayman Avenue. Okay, remember I told you that I've tested this thing. I've been observing it for a while. So I was at a different area. I left my house. I was at one area. I walked through the streets. There was no law. But the moment I went on Bayman Avenue past a certain point, that is where the law took over. Now I want you to hear this. There is no law that was there before that day, because that is an area that I frequent regularly. That law was not there. Okay? It was not there. This is something that the enemy pre-planned because they knew that a particular people group would have gathered at that particular area. So they went ahead and wrote the laws for these people. Now, before I even went out there, I already knew what was going to happen because they showed it to me. They showed it to me to say, this is what we will be doing. Remember, I am dominion over the nation. So they show it to me to say, this is what I will be doing. And I'm looking like, So, anyways, they, they gathered in that area, the particular people group. I don't know where all areas they came from, but they were in that area on Payment Avenue. And as I went further up Payment Avenue, the law connected to my head top. And this is what was happening. The law connected to my head top and it started rising up within me. And suddenly I wanted to dance. I wanted to twerk. I wanted to brag out. Okay? And I didn't, of course. Because even though that was telling me to do that, there was something of superiority that was telling me, you know very well that you cannot do that in public. Right? In public, because I dance in my house. Right? So I was like, So then what I did was that I wanted to see more. So when the police, they were coming through the crowds, I used that as an opportunity as they were coming and they were parting the crowds because the crowds was so thick and nobody was making way for me. In fact, people was out there saying things at me and I was out there trying to see what was happening so that we could make the place and things better for them. But you know, a lot of times people, they say things but because they were told to say it and they don't really know, so they know not. So you don't really pay that any attention. So, but I was taking advantage now because the police troopers were coming and they were parting the crowd. So as I stood there and I waited and I was just looking around, as I see them part the crowd, then I took that as an advantage and I entered into the space. And as I entered into the space, I was looking up into the sky because I wanted to see what was going on. And I saw these ropes connected to the head tops of the people. They don't know that it's there because it's in the spirit. You understand? It's connected to their head tops, and that is why they were acting like that. They don't even know why they were acting like that. That is why they were behaving the way they were, drinking the way they were, acting the way they were. This is the reason why when you have more insight and more understanding, you have to be more patient with people because they don't know what they don't know. Okay? But when you know, then you have to be the one to maintain your cool more and to just be more patient with them because of the information that they are not aware of. So, and that is the reason why these people were acting that way on that day, on that street. And after that, there was a whole lot of feedback on what they can do to make it better. They blamed the police. The police wasn't out there in numbers. This wasn't the police's fault. It wasn't the police's fault. We've had areas where so much less police were out there and there wasn't the level of chaos that was happening over there on Bayman Avenue. It wasn't the police. But I knew that. But other people who didn't see what I saw, they don't know that. So they assess and they draw conclusions about the situation based on the level of understanding and knowledge that they have. Right? So then, it's like this. If the day is us, our air dominating, we have the heights. And crap like that, more than likely will never happen on that scale. Because it got so bad, they were throwing battles, people were running. It was, the fight broke out. It got that bad, right? So, if the air and the day is ours, right, then it's not going to happen on that level. But if it's a day that they give it to, you know, the other people, the unsaved, right, then you already know that there's going to be an area where madness is going to be. So you definitely want to be in an area where people of a certain, I don't want to say people of a certain people group, because it's not because of the people, it's because of the laws that, but they target certain peoples, okay? They target certain people. So if you already know that you're coming from one of those areas in the crops, don't go there where a lot of people from different areas are. You spread out. You spread out yourself. Go in different areas. Don't go in groups past a certain numbers. Go in certain areas. You gotta strategize more. Okay? Spread out. Spread out. Spread out. Because if they see you bunch up together, that's an opportunity. There were like hundreds of people on Bayman Avenue. Hundreds. Hundreds. You couldn't even get space to pass. Alright? That's a recipe for disaster. Alright? So, but that's what happens, with the law. Okay? With the law. And that is one of the way how the enemy counters your grace. Right? So, sometimes when I come home, if I feel that there's a law over the area, sometimes I leave the house. If I don't have pressing things to do at home, I would leave the house. I don't do that all the time because I'm not a night person. So I would leave the house because I want to be out in the air. It doesn't happen all night or all day, right? Because there's a pattern to it. There is a pattern to it. So God is like this. God already knows, since he already knows that some days are for us, some days are for them. And let me tell you something. If God comes in and gives us the air for an entire week, Monday to Sunday, then we have an entire week and they don't have anything. Because for some reason, the enemy or the system or whatever y'all want to call it, they think that even if God gives us the air, they still take their days. That's not true. I don't know who lied to them. That's not true. If God gives us an entire week, we have the entire week. Y'all get nothing. You wait until next week. Because you're not the dominant one here. And I don't make the rules. I follow them. Right? So then, God's pattern is like this. And God's pattern is the enemy's pattern. Because whenever God draws back, the enemy tries to come in. Okay? So God's pattern is the enemy's pattern. So it's going to be working like this. God comes in, the enemy comes in. God goes there, the enemy goes. It's like that. So, if God says that your day is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then you already know that the enemy is, if God says that your day is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then the enemy is going to come in Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If God says your day is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then the enemy is going to come in Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Okay? If God says that your week, Monday to Sunday, is all about you, your week, the enemy doesn't get anything. Okay? The other set, they don't get anything. Okay? So it's like this. There is a smaller subdivided version of that. No, that's looking at it on a weekly basis. Let's look at it at a daily basis, right? On a daily basis. Let's say, for example, you have one day. It is a Monday. Okay? It is a Monday. You're going to notice that according to how your grace comes out, or let's say you are one of the people like me, you work with your grace. Your grace tells you when to. Your grace tells you when to pull back. Your grace tells you when to step up. Your grace tells you when to rest. Right? So let's say you are a person like me. On a Monday, your grace is going to be active. Let's say you start your day at 6 a.m. because that's when you wake up. When you wake up at 6 a.m., you notice that your grace is there. It's there with you, moving with you. That is your time. That is your time. If your grace is out from 6 a.m. on that day to 12 o'clock the afternoon, 6 to 12 is your time. If your grace breaks or takes a step back, then it is their time. And their time starts from where the grace left off, from 12. And let's say it continues to about 6 p.m. in the evening. And then your grace steps in again. It is again now your time. They need to move back. And if they don't know it, you get to tell it. They get to move back. Okay? So now that is your time. Now if you see from 6 p.m. To 12 in the night, or sometimes 6 p.m. to 8 in the night, or to 10 in the night, okay, that's whoever's time, and it breaks again at around 10 o'clock, then that's the other person's time. Okay, either your grace or the system. It's either God or the enemy. It's God or the enemy. I don't know which other deity or thing. The enemy is not a deity, but which other thing you guys worship. Okay, but if it's not God, then it's the devil. Okay, so that is like one of the patterns. You're going to notice that whenever a dimension leaves, and this is one of the things that they were tripping me up with, that used to cause me fear in the past, because I didn't become conscious of it until like maybe last year. Whenever a dimension clocks out and another one clocks in, there is a space in between. There's a space in between. One clocks out and you're waiting for the next one to clock in. That space in between, the enemy will try to come in, because there's not a dimension that is there that is superior to him. So he will think that, whoopee, fun time, let's have fun. Because the devil only knows to be the devil, you know. The devil only knows evil. He only knows to be the devil. Whoopee. So he will come in like he's dancing with you, and then he slaps you and go. Because he that's all he knows to be, is evil. Okay? So that's it. So I used to have the fear that, you know, whenever the dimension clocks out, the in-between time, God showed me a warning last year, and I didn't really catch up on what it meant until my dimension came, right? And that's the excitement that was there around Mount Zion in last year. But I know that now. I know that when one dimension clocks out, and we're waiting for another one to clock in, I know that the enemy just comes in there because he knows that a dimension is not there. So the enemy seizes opportunities when he sees that God draws back. That is all that he does. He's literally a bottom feeder. That's all he's doing. Whenever God is passing, he wants to come around and show himself. He's a bottom feeder. He's feeding over God's leftovers. What the enemy will do is to go before God. So if God is saying now that he is going to do something easy. If God is saying now that he is going to send you a wife, right? And God is going to send you a wife on Friday. The enemy is going to come in on Monday, and he's going to send a woman, and you will think that woman is it. Okay? Because God done already told you that he's sending you a wife. But perhaps he didn't tell you the time frame. But the enemy knows the time frame. He knows the timeline. That's the advantage that he has over some of us that we don't know. You understand? He knows the time frame. Okay? And if God says that he's sending you this wife on Friday, the enemy is going to come in on Monday. And then when the woman comes on Monday, you're going to be happy and think, okay, I met the woman that God has for me. And then chaos is going to let loose in that relationship, and you're going to be blaming God. Why did you do this? You said you're going to send me a wife. This is what you sent. She can't cook. She can't clean. My gosh. And you're going to be blaming God. But what the enemy does was trip you up. He sent you somebody outside of the timeline of God. And that relationship, by the time you see around Wednesday, that relationship is going to break off. Why? Because you need the space to be free so that it takes over on God's timeline on Friday for when your real wife that God has for you has to come. You see that? He's tricky, okay? So you want to be cautious of that. That's another like pattern that we do. Um, what he does is what he does when people have like ministry and stuff, like when God is preparing somebody for a work, okay, for a ministry and like for things like that, what he's going to do is the enemy knows the timeline, God knows the timeline, but you don't know the timeline. We don't know the timeline, right? Unless God reveals it to us. But oftentimes he doesn't always reveal dates. Okay, he doesn't. There's not a whole lot of scenarios where he releases dates. So then, what he does is that the enemy knows that God is going to equip you for a particular ministry. Like for me, God has called me to the people that are coming out of the hard places. He has mandated me for that. He's equipped me for that. And my grace is superior. So the enemy doesn't get to tell me what from what. It means that my grace is superior and enough to carry these people. You understand? Because God is not going to send you to something rough and not give you the power to handle the rough things, right? He's going to equip you properly. So what the enemy did to me is that in the past years, before I had the grace to stand in these areas, and this is what he does to many people in ministry, that causes frustration and annoyance. So if the enemy knows that God is going to equip me for these people in 2023, he's going to go ahead of you, and he's going to come in from around 2018, 2019, from sometimes even years before in your life, and he's going to try to force you in these areas, and there's going to be all this complaint that is coming out. It's going to be so hard because you do not have the grace as yet to stand in that position and to stand in that area. And that is how the enemy uses the things of God against you. That is why some people like to say, look at the way how the enemy attacks you, and that's an indication of how God is going to use you, or the direction that your ministry is supposed to go. I don't recommend looking at anything the enemy does for direction in God, because the enemy is not going to be my prophet. Okay, so I would never recommend that, but I get what they were trying to say. So the enemy is going to go ahead of you and force you in places that you don't belong yet, and it's going to frustrate you, and it's going to annoy you, and you won't be able to stand there, and it's going to be hard. But when your grace comes, you are able to stand there easily. You know, like I could look at, some of these people that society would label as rough, and in my grace comes out, and my grace looks at them, and they're just vibes in, and they're just having a good time. You can just see that they're just trying to enjoy the high of life, and like my grace gets that. He gets that so well, and he it brings him joy when they have joy. It's the weirdest thing. When they're happy, he's happy. And he wants to know how to serve them. He wants to know what they want. He wants to know how he can help, because that is what grace does. Grace comes to help, and grace comes to bridge the gap. Grace wants to know what's wrong so that he can know how he can help the situation to be better, how he can improve the quality of things. That is what grace does. That is what the dimension does. Okay? So let me see if I'm missing anything today, because I think that's pretty much all that I have to say. That's basically it. So we went over what the dimension is doing right now. We went over how the enemy is challenging the grace with law, and we've covered how to counter some of the attacks that the enemy brings with their law, right? So listen, I want to thank you guys for listening to my live today, to my little chat. I'm glad that I took this time to jump on here and just to say something to you guys. All right, it's always a pleasure to serve you. Be sure to stay tuned to ways on how you can give and contribute to this ministry. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a safe and productive week ahead in Jesus' name. Bye.